Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 15, Episode 107. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Wednesday. Steelers Nation, Dave, a jam-packed show today. Free agent signings, players being re-signed, pro day information, more Aaron Rodgers talk, our favorite topic, and a little March Madness coming up. Who do you got going all the way this year, Dave?
I haven't even gotten that far, but it might be Auburn or who's the other one? One of the top seeds, Houston,
Florida,
I think.
Houston, yeah. I got Duke going with the Blue Devils.
Oh wow, Duke! I can't root for Duke. I'm one of those anybody but Duke people. So dates back to I guess being indoctrinated by Jim Rome for all those years. Of course, Duke is Duke, and he used to play. That's probably before your time. He's been on the radio a long time. I used to listen when I was in the coffee business for a while and driving around all those hours on the road. Used to listen to the Jim Rome show all the time there. But more importantly, I meant to ask you, you got another darkness retreat scheduled tonight? Is it?
Do I? I guess I wasn't even aware that I had one, but we're all in a darkness retreat until Aaron Rodgers decides. We'll talk about him, who's in, who's out, where it goes from here. No hard update, maybe inching closer to a decision. But again, like I said before, we are all on Aaron Rodgers time and we sit and we wait.
Yeah, I guess the latest scuttlebutt this morning is that the Vikings really aren't all that interested in Aaron Rodgers, and they're dedicated to J.J. McCarthy. And long story short, that doesn't seem to be an option for Aaron Rodgers. And if indeed that's the case, that of course leaves the Giants and the Steelers, and both those organizations have probably got to be pretty tired waiting for a decision at this point. And I don't know if we're going to get some resolution. Some people kind of want. Jay Glazer came out with a little bit of a rant, I guess, if you will, on yesterday being Tuesday, saying, hey, give Aaron Rodgers some space here. This is and I'm paraphrasing, this is a big decision and, one not to take lightly, and legacy and all like that. But we're coming up, I guess, today at 4:00 will be 1 week since the start of the new league year. It's not like Aaron Rodgers probably didn't know some of the irons in the fire even before he was officially released by the Jets a week ago. And there was all those pictures about him on the Malibu beach, and he went to the flag football charity event over the weekend, and still nobody knows nothing. And even his good friend AJ Hawk on the Pat McAfee show claims to not know which way Aaron Rodgers is going to lean. So, until we get some definite resolution to this, it's like the major media is just playing tag of who's up next on speculation and specu reports, I guess.
They're tired. We're tired. Cam Hayward is tired. We'll talk about it a little bit later in the show. But Dave, I want to lead off with a topic that, and I apologize, I should have mentioned this in the last two shows. I kept forgetting to write it down. It might have been my brain telling me to, let's not try to write this thing down because his name is a difficult one. Never mentioned, it's not a big story in hindsight, at least going forward, I should say. But Kyle Juszczyk came in for a visit with Pittsburgh, I think it was last Thursday, officially re-up with the 49ers. And so Pittsburgh will not land Juszczyk. We won't have to spell it throughout the entire 2025 season. Reportedly, Pittsburgh offered more money overall, although the deal with San Francisco was pretty hefty on the guarantees and the bit of incentive language as well. So I just never mentioned that aspect of free agency partially because it never ended up happening in terms of him signing. But Pittsburgh courted Juszczyk. He decided to remain in San Francisco despite being cut and I think taking some sort of a pay cut, but did not want to have to leave the area.
As Forrest Gump would say, all I got to say about that is, here's the thing. Mike Florio reported that supposedly it's a 2-year, $8 million contract that Kyle Juszczyk is signing back with the 49ers, and he claims it has $7 million fully guaranteed. So $7 million of $8 million fully guaranteed, and includes an annual $250K in Pro Bowl incentives. And then you have the report, I guess, yesterday or the day before, that the Steelers offer was more than that. But if you want to start splitting hairs in there, let's say the Steelers offered him 2 years, 10 million, or 2 years, 9 million. I can almost guarantee you that the Steelers were not going to guarantee more than 55% of that, let's say $10 million. So I'm willing to bet that the guarantees, I mean, let's face it, if it's a 2-year, $8 million contract with the 49ers and $7 million is guaranteed, then there's probably more than the first year guaranteed. And then we get back into the conversation about the Steelers and not guaranteeing money past the first year. If you want to go even deeper, talk about the annual $250K in Pro Bowl incentives, which I would assume would total up another $500,000 there. I mean, the Steelers just don't like incentives. And people keep asking me, why don't the Steelers like in doing incentives? Well, my best answer is they just don't. That's one of those questions that either probably the combine's not the perfect time to ask it, but probably around when Omar Khan makes those swings around training camp time would be a perfect time to ask him that. Or if not, then during that pre-draft press conference, maybe out of the blue, kind of ask him that. This team forever. I mean, you date back to even when they acquired Vance McDonald several years ago, or they acquire any player via a trade on kind of one of those not minimal, but mid-range contracts. And if those things have per game roster bonuses or anything included in them, they obviously have to assume those. But if they get a chance through a restructure or whatever, they always work those things out of them, because they just don't like per game roster bonuses, performance bonuses. Now they'll do them with a quarterback, and we saw them do it with Mitch Trubisky a couple of years ago. But that's really the only time that you see them, with maybe the quarterback position and a free agent, like that, do those kind of things. And even so, the thing with Mitch Trubisky, those incentives were, even at the time of signing, seemed somewhat unfeasible for him to read. It was going to be a good problem had Mitch Trubisky met some of those incentives, meaning he played well and all like that. But, and then once again, switching coast for Kyle Juszczyk was probably a big deal. Obviously been rooted in San Francisco for a while. I know his wife's big with kind of that clothing design, and probably didn't want to uproot the family from out there and those kind of things. So I'm not overly surprised. And even though the report kind of makes it look bad on the Steelers, that, they turned down, Juszczyk turned down more money from the Steelers, it probably has a lot to do with several of the factors that I just said. And one of those being guaranteed money potentially past the first year.
Well said and agreed. Overall money and structure of money. We talked about our last episode. The devil's in the details for NFL contracts. They're not fully guaranteed at signing the way they are for the other major American sports. And so what looks better on paper in terms of the overall value may not be a better deal overall. And for a player that was, 34 years old, do you want to have to uproot family? There's so many other considerations players have to make than just what is the most amount of money. And so I think that's why Juszczyk is staying in San Francisco. Plus, it's a system that's treated him well. It's used him well. It's made 8 Pro Bowls there. And if they turn things around, they can certainly compete for an NFC title and Super Bowl in 2025. So just wanted to mention that Juszczyk on Pittsburgh's radar. They pursued him pretty heavily, apparently made a pretty competitive, even a really good offer, but ended up losing out. Is this going to be a situation where Pittsburgh is now going to actively look for a fullback and really intend to bring somebody in? Or is this just trying to meet an opportunity where this guy came on radar and you said, let's go after this guy with this great resume and still probably the best fullback in football?
Well, I mean, should they be looking for one that can fullback, H-back, maybe even inline tight end a little bit? Yeah, I think they should because, yes, you have Pat Freiermuth. Yes, you have Darnell Washington. But really, what do you have behind him? And what specifically do you have at fullback? Connor Hayward's always been kind of this quasi jack of all trades, master of none, if you will. And, they did go out and sign the other, who was the other tight end slash,
Donald Parham?
Yeah, Parham. And that's, there's not a lot to, I mean, he's more of a receiver than he is,
he's a big guy.
A tight end, with him. Now, I guess you do have in Evan Hull, kind of a bigger guy that they signed.
Yeah, he's a running back, but he's a little more quasi fullback potential, sure.
Right. So, but what else is out there on top of it there? So, anyway, should they be looking for one? Yes. Was Juszczyk probably going to be the best out there at the time? Yes. And we'll just see where they go from here. What's Adam Schefter reporting?
Just that Aaron Rodgers is in no rush to make a decision, and the Vikings being out does not change his timeline at all. So I was hoping the Vikings being out would provide clarity. It appears that it has not.
All right.
You can hear the depression in my voice there. But yeah, with Arthur Smith, his offenses have typically used a fullback, often one that was more of a true lead blocker special teamer. That was Keith Smith in Atlanta, Blasingame in Tennessee for a brief time there. Juszczyk would be more than that, but 34. He barely played on special teams last year. There was some diminishing roles and snap counts he was dealing with. And so, I wondered what the value would be in Pittsburgh. So I'm not too upset about losing out on him. I think Pittsburgh will certainly keep eyes wide open. But I think if you look for a fullback, you probably look for more of the guys that have fit Smith's mold in the past of that true old school fullback type. Pittsburgh tried it last year with Connor Hayward, a little bit of Michael Pruitt, neither very effective. I think Pittsburgh would like to get one, but in this day and age, it's hard to find somebody that fits.
Right. It is.
All right. Dave, let's talk about who did sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that is Juan Thornhill. So Pittsburgh desperately needed safety depth. There were a lot of, I think, talented, worthy options that went off the board for cheap money. Pittsburgh lands on Thornhill, who spent the last 2 years with Cleveland, had injury issues, did not live up to expectations. It is a 1-year deal for Thornhill. We do not know the money on it. I can't imagine it's going to be a whole lot of money for him, but it is going to be some good depth. He was a really athletic kid coming out of Virginia, won 2 Super Bowls with Kansas City, played really well for KC, cashed in on a good money deal with Cleveland a couple years back, but again, did not meet those expectations. Had some effort issues, just some bad tape out there, got cut this offseason, and so he finds himself in the AFC North still, but this time going over from Cleveland to Pittsburgh.
Usually when you when you see these signings take place or you get news on a player, you can finagle Twitter and do a search real quick for some videos, highlights or lowlights or whatever on a player. And the most popular video, it seemed like, that was reposted last year when it comes to Thornhill was that play against the Saints. Where he's kind of no man's land, and I think his effort was kind of questioned on that play, and that seemed to be the most popular clip of him. And there weren't a lot out there in totality. Obviously, I don't think he had injury last year, missed some games, I think, and didn't have a pick and kind of minimal stats because of, I guess, missing time and all like that. The fact that, and I researched this quickly, I think he was only due like $3.4 or $3.6 million with the Browns, and they still ended up cutting him, I think, end of February or sometime late in February. Just said, you know what, this just isn't going to work out. Give him time to go latch on with somebody else, and on the street all that time, and into the start of the first week of free agency here, and still probably couldn't find work. Now he seems like excited as hell to come to the Steelers. Of course, probably excited to sign with any team and get a chance on a 1-year deal to kind of reprove himself. But versatile safety. His better years, as you stated, were with Kansas City. I think you go back the final year in Kansas City had like 3 interceptions or something. I think a willing tackler, not the best tackler, a guy that gives you probably some position flexibility at both safety spots. The Steelers starting 2 safety spots obviously seemed filled up, but there was a lot of talk of, hey, there needs to be another body in that room, so especially one that could be versatile until we get into the draft and all like that. And I think more from a need aspect, he fits what they need. And obviously he's got a lot of playing time experience, and you're right with the contract. It's a 1-year contract, and it's hard to imagine it being more than $3 million. I mean, we quite honestly could be talking about a veteran benefit deal here, but I would think that he would at least get offered that by another team. But I dare say I'll be surprised if it comes in over $3 million when it comes to that. But you get a guy, once again, that's experienced, a guy that can play both safety spots, a guy that can probably play in your sub package, certain sub packages and all. So it's a reasonable ad. It's not one that's going to stop the presses or anything like that. And the fact that he was a street free agent means he will not count against the compensatory value system.
I'm generally pretty whelmed by this addition. It's not my ideal choice there, but it is a veteran. They needed depth, and so it does check those boxes. He's a guy that played more free safety than strong safety last year in Cleveland, but has hit power to come up and play the run, support it, and be near the line of scrimmage. And so if he can capture some of that Kansas City magic and some of the tools and traits he showed coming out of college, then Pittsburgh will have something there. And obviously in a backup role, it's going to be better for him than the starting role. He had a bunch of calf issues in Cleveland. That was kind of the real issue that limited him consistently, and the on-field play was poor. And as you said, there was that really ugly moment against the Saints last year on that long touchdown by Valdez-Scantling where Thornhill's kind of jogging it out and even admitted post-game, my effort was not good enough. And so he did not try to deny it or make an excuse or say there was some misinterpretation of the play. He just said the effort was not good enough. He understood it, addressed it, and everyone tried to move on. So, as a backup in a pretty thin free agent market where some of the names I liked went off the board, Damar Hamlin, Ashton Davis, even Jalen Hawkins, Marcus Epps, Thornhill probably the better of the lot. He's about to turn 30, and so you're not getting super young there, but is he an upgrade over DeMonte Casey? Probably overall. We'll see if Pittsburgh continues to add. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Some intriguing stuff going on at safety in Pittsburgh in the draft day, but overall, I can live with it, even though I'm not loving this addition.
Yeah, I'm whelmed as well. And they didn't bring him in for a pre-draft visit several years ago, did they?
I didn't look at the list that year. Was that the COVID year? I think it was before the COVID year, but I don't recall seeing anything on Thornhill when that was a 2019. I can double check here if you want me to double check here.
I would imagine that come time that he has his media session roll around with this next batch, if indeed they let some of these guys meet the media after this first wave has already happened, I would imagine he'll be asked about that, what happened with the Browns and maybe that play specifically and instance against the Saints.
No visit with the Steelers, as far as I can tell, according to our 2019 tracker, but obviously playing against Pittsburgh. I think he played in both games last year in 2024, played in one in 2023, so they're pretty familiar with his body of work, and I'm sure had that old draft file to dust off whenever he became a free agent.
He had that tackle against Freiermuth, didn't he, that kept him short of the first down?
I do not recall.
It seemed like it was either him or Jalen Warren. I think that he had that tackle kept him short of the first down. But anyway, they needed to add to the room, and they needed a versatile body, and so there they have one.
There you go. Another Steeler addition, although this is a re-signing after signing Daniel Aquale, Pittsburgh loading up on D-line depth and signing and bringing back Isaiahh Loudermilk on a 1-year contract. Again, do not know money on that, but like Thornhill, not going to be much for Loudermilk, and so Pittsburgh with Loudermilk, Aquale, Dean Lowry still on this roster for now, Montravius Adams. Pittsburgh has their depth. The question will be, when do you get the starter? Through the draft, obviously, but they're trying to round out the pieces behind.
I tell you, when you look at how many times he was inactive, how many snaps he played, what his total stat line was, it's hard to imagine this not being a veteran benefit contract. And I think he was one that both of us predicted to return, didn't we?
Yes, although after the Aquale signing, you were a little unsure. Is this closing the door? Is this the Loudermilk replacement? Still, in theory, could be if he's cut in camp, but bringing both guys into the fold.
All right, let's read off the defensive linemen currently under contract with the Steelers. Cameron Hayward, Keanu Benton, Montravius Adams, Aquale, Dean Lowry, Isaiah Loudermilk, DeMarvin Leal, Logan Lee, Dominique Davis, and Jacob Slade. At least you got people back in that room now, because as of a couple of days ago, that list was too shorter, if you will. But even so, this does absolutely nothing to what the team could potentially do in the draft, and still have to think that potential first round draft pick will be thrown at that position. We talked quite a bit about Aquale the other day and what he offers this team, and where his usage might be. Loudermilk, no guarantee he makes the roster. We're still finding out what people are saying. This will. Several people tweeted me, "Don't sleep on DeMarvin Leal this year," but there has been absolutely nothing from what I've seen to give me a reason. Leal needs to wake me up when it comes to the conversation with him. Now, Logan Lee, you obviously hope he gets stronger and a little bit more developed moving forward. And you roll back to last year with the usage in the preseason, it seemed to be mostly and kind of uncharacteristically at nose tackle. That seemed to be a great fit for him there. Two guys at the bottom list, Dominique Davis and Jacob Slade, are really outsiders looking in, probably more slated as potential practice squad guys. So yes, they have filled quote unquote holes in the defensive line room since especially since letting Larry Ogunjobi go, but in no way, shape, or form is this a finished room at this point.
No, there is an elephant in the room, and that is the lack of a starter, with Hayward and Benton trying to find that third guy for your base packages, that third rusher, the long-term replacement, ideally for Cam Hayward. So that's what the room is missing. They've added depth, and the depth I think is fine overall. I can live with the backups that we rattled off of Adams, Aquale, Loudermilk, and whoever else will be in that mix. Leal, to his credit, perked up last year before that neck injury unfortunately ended his season. He'll certainly enter 2025 outside the bubble and have to work his way back in with, I would say, pretty tough odds to make it. But there was at least some sign of life last year in his game, in better shape, in better conditioning, more consistent, a little more pass rush juice. But that injury really wiped out before he could get going. So depth is okay. The starting role remains.
Right. I still am all for this team throwing 2 draft picks at this class on the defensive line. We'll see whether or not they do or not.
Sure. All right, Dave, where to from here? Let's circle back to quarterback, and really Cam Hayward made a ton of waves yesterday and even today in the national media in the discussion about his kind of thoughts on the Aaron Rodgers situation, essentially saying on his podcast, "I'm not recruiting Aaron Rodgers." He didn't say he was fed up, but the body language was basically fed up. And his quote was basically, "You're either a Steeler or you're not. Join us or don't. Let's make a decision. Let's move on here." And so Hayward, the face of the franchise, very publicly, I think, expressing his just being tired of the saga and having to wait out for an entire full week into this new league year of who this team's quarterback will be. Pittsburgh still does not know. It creates angst and stress for everyone. And I think Hayward is talking the way we all feel right now. We're just tired of this wait, never know when the news is going to drop. Apparently, Rodgers still not in a hurry to make a decision, even though Minnesota is out on him, leaving the Steelers and Giants what else is there to consider? Retirement, the possibility, of course. So Hayward, I think, saying what we're all thinking.
Yeah, not probably so much a shot at Aaron Rodgers personally, just tired of the situation. And you rewind back to a year ago, and the courtship of Russell Wilson was a very, very quick one. They supposedly, a couple of them got on some calls and talked to Russell and get him to come, and all that transpired really, really quick. And this year, obviously, the complete opposite with it when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. I don't know. Does it sound like there's been any calls by Cam Hayward on a phone call with Aaron Rodgers trying to sell him to come to Pittsburgh? It doesn't sound like it. More than anything, I think Cam's just tired of reading all the stuff that we're reading and posting about out there. In other words, he just wants Aaron to shit or get out the pot. I don't know if I can say that, but I just did.
No, you're right. That's cutting through into the heart of everything. Make a decision, in or out, good either way. Just want to know so we can all move on, so the franchise can move on, because they remain in this holding pattern of not knowing exactly how this season's going to go and who's going to lead this team. And if it's not going to be Rodgers, will it be Russ? Will it be Rudolph? Will it be Kirk Cousins? Just don't know right now. So that's the message overall from Cam. I totally get it. Understand the frustration. But Pittsburgh has put themselves in this position where they don't view there's really any other alternatives. Of course, you don't have to go with Rodgers, but they are very lukewarm at best on Russ, and Rodgers is the last remaining viable full-time starting quarterback out there. And so Pittsburgh really has no choice but to wait.
Would you speculate? That's dangerous and everything related to this. Would you speculate that Aaron Rodgers waiting on this decision is more about really struggling about whether or not he wants to play 1 or 2 more years, or is this more about Aaron Rodgers just liking the limelight on him?
I think the former is one thought that comes to mind, and I'd mentioned that, I think, late last week. The longer a lack of a decision comes, the more you wonder if he's deciding, A, do I want to play at all? And I think the prevailing wisdom, including my own, has been the assumption he will play, not wanting to go out the way that the terrible disaster the 2024 Jets were. But you never know. And Rodgers is defined by much more than just a game. He is not just a football player. I don't know if it's a limelight thing. I think it's just an Aaron Rodgers thing where he marches to the beat of his own drum, and he knows he holds the cards here with the Giants, with the Steelers. He can afford to take his sweet time. There really isn't a lot of recourse, not a lot of other moves for teams to make. The Giants are visiting with quarterbacks with Jameis Winston and Joe Flacco, but of course, if Rodgers says yes, they're going to happily have him. He's clearly the best option out there, and so he certainly has the time and can afford to make teams wait. My thought is, Dave, the longer this thing drags on, and it's dragged on for a long time in NFL calendar terms, how well will he be received with Pittsburgh in that locker room should he decide to sign with the Steelers? You hear Hayward, a spokesperson for the team, very clearly, I think, show his frustration over the situation, not exactly pining and having a boombox outside Aaron Rodgers' window to bring him to Pittsburgh. So the longer this thing goes on, you wonder, does this guy really want to even play for you? I mean, is he kind of begrudgingly signing with Pittsburgh? Should that be the ultimate outcome? Clearly, he's not sitting there saying, hey, I would love to come back. I would love to come to Pittsburgh. Let's do this thing. Let's go win. It is at best this kind of more mild feeling, at least it would seem. So how much of an issue is that if the perception is Rodgers is using Pittsburgh as kind of a backup choice and not feeling like he's all in on Pittsburgh?
And I guess another aspect of the conversation, I think Brooke Pryor brought this up, was why does it not seem like there's more people out there, players trying to recruit him, or something along those lines?
Yeah, we don't know what's happening behind the scenes. I think part of it is Rodgers does his own thing. It's also
Small
probably
circle.
a small circle, probably not the easiest guy to get in touch with either. And so he's going to do what he's going to do, and outside sources really aren't going to change his mind. We know Hayward is still recruiting. Darius Slay just talked about that Hayward was on the phone with him, hitting him up whenever the Eagles released him. So, it's not that Hayward's on this anti-recruiting tour, but certainly not going to happen with Rodgers.
Right.
So
But
we said, wait, go ahead.
To the question, is there a concern? Clearly, Rodgers is not chomping at the bit to join Pittsburgh, and so should Pittsburgh still be interested on a guy who does not seem to be as interested in him as Pittsburgh is with Rodgers?
Well, there was it tickled me, as does a lot of their headlines yesterday. The Onion, the headline and short kind of satirical story they had: numerous teams express interest in Aaron Rodgers playing elsewhere. uh, uh, these are only questions I think that he's going to be able to answer after he makes his decision, assuming it is with the team. Did it basically come down to just the two teams, and why did you choose one over the other?
Right, but I just wonder how the locker room will welcome him. Now, obviously, winning cures all, and if they have a great season and they have 11 wins and they win a playoff game and go on a run, all will be forgiven and forgotten about how we got to that point in the first place. But is that another reason to sit there and say this team should bring back Russell Wilson, despite the issues and the pitfalls there? There are no good options at quarterback. Each one has its own clear cons, but Russ obviously was very eager and wanting to come back to Pittsburgh. So would you rather have the guy that is all in on you or the guy who seemingly is taking his time to decide whether or not he wants to play with you at all?
Yeah. I'm about over, and I know most of our listeners are as well too. So my thought, and I know this has been yours for a while as well too, throughout this thing here, especially since this team signed or traded for DK Metcalf, is, man, it sure would make a lot of sense for Russell Wilson to come back, already having the familiarity with the offense and working, of course, with George Pickens last year, and the time previously spent with DK Metcalf. I wonder if you put DK Metcalf on a lie detector, who he'd want in there. He unequivocally probably would say Russell Wilson, right?
That would be my guess.
Yeah. So I don't know. It might come down to money, and then obviously the big seemingly elephant in the room when it comes to Russell Wilson and potential return is, how much of disagreements did he have with Arthur Smith, especially later on in the season, with all that, that was kind of reported about, kind of their relationship as things went on, and Russell Wilson, thinking that they should be one thing on offense, I guess, and Arthur Smith thinking, wanting to stick to his way.
Sure, how well can that bridge that might have been burned be rebuilt in a city of bridges like Pittsburgh? So, yeah, we will see overall. I had a thought and I just lost it there for Aaron Rodgers, but I to answer my own question of how well he would be received and how to kind of navigate a guy who does not seem to be incredibly excited and like gung ho to join Pittsburgh immediately. I mean, Rodgers wasn't Pittsburgh's first choice either. It was Fields, and then maybe Darnold, and then it appears to be Rodgers. And so I guess it's a world where you weren't my first choice, and we weren't your first choice, and you're all kind of in the same boat. But here we are. Let's make this thing work. Is that the most conducive way to have success at quarterback? Probably not. But nothing Pittsburgh has done has really lent itself to that, and no option Pittsburgh has on the board is going to be the most conducive path to success. So I suppose in the end, all that matters is you're here, and if you can play well and win, then like I said earlier, all this angst and frustration can be forgotten.
We had this conversation the other day. Is it now down to Aaron Rodgers has to take the Steelers' price, and there's no dickering involved in this point. Either you want the deal or you don't.
I think so. I don't think there's a negotiation. I think the contracts are out there. The offers are the offers. Rodgers can decide. I don't think there's much else to really be said other than just to wait.
This ain't coming in at no $35 million either, is it?
I mean, the report is Darnold like money. I think it's going to start with a 3 in terms of what that average yearly value is. What that second digit is, I couldn't tell you with confidence.
I'm going to say that first digit's on a 2.
Low 2, high 2.
Mid 2.
Mid 2. So 25?
Probably.
I'll say it's going to be at least 30.
Okay.
I just want an answer. I don't care what it is. I don't even care at this point. Like, do it, don't do it. I just want went through all that stupid Ayuk stuff last year. Now we're going through. How does Pittsburgh find itself
I
in
don't
this
know.
position every year? They're always in the middle of these just sagas, and obviously, I mean, hopefully this won't drag on as long as Ayuk, which went on for literal months. But Pittsburgh always finds themselves in the middle of this just never-ending news cycle.
And if it is 1 year with either Rodgers or Wilson, are we back in this saga once again, especially if this team does not draft a quarterback?
100%. Yeah, especially if it is Rodgers. I mean, you are guaranteed to be in that conversation of, will Rodgers retire? He's deciding. We're waiting. Is he the guy? And that's one of the several reasons why if I'm Pittsburgh, I'm going back to Russ than Rodgers. I've been on record saying that of the options that are left, Russ is a better choice than Rodgers. And I think the longer this thing goes on, the more evident that becomes.
All right.
Not that Russ is a great choice, not my first choice,
All right.
but you have those are your choices right now. And yes, you can go with Rudolph and some other low-level veteran and a rookie, but for a team that wants to try to win, get over the hump, they're obviously pursuing Rodgers for that reason. Whether or not that happens, I'm skeptical of, but that's their choice right now. So that's the scope in which I'm viewing it of a full-time clear starter. It's Russ or Rodgers. I would go Russ. They're attempting to go Rodgers.
Okay.
All right, Dave, let's talk, what do we talk here? And by the way, Bill Cowher supports that belief. He talked on the Dan Patrick show yesterday and said his choice of the remaining options would be to stick with Russell Wilson.
Who said that?
Bill Cowher.
Oh, yeah. But Cowher yesterday. I mean, I think a lot of the reasons that we just kind of said, got the familiarity, and he talked about, the tackles will be potentially, we're planning to be Broderick Jones on the left side and Fautano on the right side, and just the overall familiarity. And Cowher went on to say he does kind of wonder if Aaron Rodgers does want to play football still.
Right, and all valid questions and thoughts and comments from Bill Cowher. All right, Dave, let's talk NFL draft now. A lot to discuss there. I'm sure we'll find out a bit more later today, probably post-podcast, but we know Pittsburgh has sent the usual suspects to the Alabama Pro Day, Mike Tomlin, Omar Khan. Also, and this is of note, quarterback coach Tom Arth and the team reportedly had a Pro Day dinner with Jalen Milroe, the Alabama quarterback, last night. Now, I imagine probably it was more than just Milroe. Typically, Pittsburgh has these dinners with multiple teammates, but Milroe certainly the headline name, as Pittsburgh potentially could draft a quarterback in that day two range. And so I'm betting a bunch of other Steelers personnel are there beyond Tomlin, Khan, and Arth, but no surprise to see head coach GM at Alabama, but notable all the same.
Yep, absolutely. And I guess we're just waiting for that to fire up on, I think, the SEC network. I think is going to carry that today, and we should have tons of pictures coming in of Khan and Tomlin and Arth, and I would imagine Terrell Austin will be there. Probably Arthur Smith will probably show up there as well. And look, I mean, it's a big deal anytime there's very few during an off season this time of year of pro day dinners that actually get, reported. I'm sure there's a lot more that happen that don't get potentially reported, but it's a big deal whenever the Steelers show up a day early and take one of these kids or group of kids out for a dinner. And the fact that Khan and Tomlin and Arth were all within that, especially, look, I mean, this is a kid in Milroe that was at the Senior Bowl, right? So they, you got to figure that they spent some time with Milroe at the Senior Bowl. You've had the combine since, and I believe it was reported that had a combine formal meeting with them there. So they're definitely more than curious about him, and you'd have to think going to the pro day today, there'll be more conversations with probably. Assuming Milroe's family shows up and all those kind of things. So there's definitely a lot of smoke when it comes to Jalen Milroe at this point.
And when you send the positional coach, the quarterback coach, and Tom Arth, he's not there to watch Tyler Booker, the guard. I can promise you that. So you're there to see Milroe. What are your thoughts on Milroe? Do you like him? Would you take him in, say, round 3? What do you come in?
I think he's a third or fourth round prospect, and with this class and not being a great class and the priority put on the quarterback position, it might take a third round draft pick to get him. Either that, or I don't know if he falls into the fourth. Maybe you have to go up in the fourth or something. I don't know to go get him, but for all the good that's on his tape, there's kind of some equally bad. Last night, I posted the 11 interceptions that he threw last season. There's a lot of, but he was responsible for more turnovers than just that. Had the fumbles and stuff. Can make a lot of plays, obviously, with his feet. Has a big arm. I think there's a lot of accuracy concerns that need to be worked out with him. I definitely don't think that whatever team he does end up with, he comes in and he's a first-year starter. We've seen this team claim in the past that they had a first-round grade on somebody, i.e. Mason Rudolph, only to trade up to get him in, what was it, the third round. And we see how that turned out at worst-case scenario. Even if you did draft Milroe, let's say the third or fourth round, it's more of, let's see what we got here and what we can develop. And he's got some of this mobility that Mike Tomlin talks about. And if after his rookie season, whether or not he plays much, we'll get a good look at him. It still does not prevent us from potentially going back into the 2026 and maybe taking a higher shot at a quarterback in the draft. And maybe at worst case scenario, we get a serviceable backup with this team. And you talk about this team bringing in Tyler out of Louisville for a pre-draft visit. We'll see how busy this team is. I tell you what, I don't think they have any interest in McCord out of Syracuse, because they only, from what we've seen, only saw the Rooney kid there so far at the Syracuse Pro Days. So we'll see if they bring McCord in for a visit, but there doesn't seem a lot of interest in there. Shuck, it seems like there's been some dot connecting with him. Who was it? Riddick that came out and says, keep an eye on Tyler Shuck and Arthur Smith and kind of the connection there.
And he came in for a visit.
And he came in for a visit there. I would think I will be shocked if Milroe does not come in for a pre-draft visit,
well, if they're at the pro day, what else is there to even talk about if you have the whole brass down there?
Sure, but like I said, I won't be surprised if he does come in. But quarterback, I think, is in play here for the Steelers at some point during this draft. I do not think it'll be first round, but I think anything beyond the first round, it feels like you have to pay attention to what they might do in the middle rounds with the quarterback.
I agree. I think it's certainly going to be something to look at, and depends on how these quarterbacks fall. Trying to figure out how the draft looks beyond the top two, and even Shadur Sanders' stock and situations a little more murky. Where does Jackson Dart fall? Is he going to be a first round guy? Is that more hype? We'll have to see. How do teams evaluate Shuck, Will Howard, McCord, Milroe, etc.? It's not a super easy, clear path to say this is a second rounder. Here's your first rounder. Here's your fourth rounder. It's kind of a jumbled up mess in this year's quarterback class. Not like last year where you could sit there and say, here's the 6 guys who are going to go round 1 and everyone else is kind of cannon fodder. So with Milroe, super great athlete, 20 rushing touchdowns this past year, second in the SEC. He's got a big arm. He's intelligent. I mean, he won the William B. Campbell Award, which is the academic Heisman. You see some really impressive moments on tape. To me, Dave, the fatal flaw in his game that has to get fixed is the accuracy. Super inaccurate to all levels. Number of RPOs and one-step throws that he had offline where receivers and backs had to reach back and adjust and couldn't get yak off of it. Was so consistent. It was really frustrating to watch, and that carried over to the Senior Bowl. And so if you don't have accuracy as a quarterback, it's really hard to build off of from there. But I compared him to Justin Fields, and I think Pittsburgh could look at this and say, we fixed Justin Fields' mechanical issues, had some footwork problems, lower body things that had to be corrected. Can we do the same with Milroe that maybe cleans up accuracy? Accuracy is most often a mechanical issue, a mapping issue. And so, do they believe they could probably develop Milroe, take him in the third round? He's going to sit for a year or two behind whatever veteran is in front of him. We're going to work on him mechanically and really have something like Fields that we just lost to the Jets. I could certainly see that being a thought in their head right now.
Right. What was the main thing they talked about Kenny Pickett though? When they drafted him, just impressed with the accuracy.
Sure. Now that was Kevin Colbert mostly saying
Right.
that, and we don't know how Omar Khan and Andy White will feel about it, and the position has changed. And you bring in a Justin Fields, you got a taste of what Justin Fields was like for your offense and what that opened up, and would Pittsburgh still want to pursue that? It would make sense, but certainly, yeah, Pittsburgh was high on accuracy with Pickett, and for any level of quarterback success, you better be accurate.
Is it safe to say Milroe is the third or fourth quarterback off the board in this year's draft?
No, I don't think it is. I think third is really pushing it. I think Jackson Dart will be the third, and the fourth becomes that jump ball between Howard, McCord, Shuck, who might be the favorite to be that fourth quarterback. If you made me choose if I
Okay.
had to choose today who's the fourth quarterback selected, I would probably say Tyler Shuck. I think Milroe could be, but I don't think it's safe to say that one bit.
All right.
The Oregon Pro Day day, we teased that on the Monday show. Big Pro Day, ton of prospects there for the Ducks. Thought Pittsburgh could really have representation. No, it was a dud in terms of who went. There was just one Steelers personnel member. We can confirm that. That was senior scouting assistant Kelvin Fisher. Certainly wasn't a surprise. My expectation was that Tomlin nor Khan would go, but I thought maybe at least Carl Dunbar, the D-line coach, would go there, or some sort of higher up personnel kind of above that area scout, but it was not the case. It was just Kelvin Fisher. Now, that was a well-attended pro day. There were a ton of big wigs from the NFL there, including John Lynch. Bunch of teams sent defensive line coaches, other higher ups, and so it's not like there was a sparsely attended day overall in workout, but Pittsburgh only sending Fisher. What does this say, if anything, about their interest in Derek Harmon in the first round?
Uh, the fact that it's west of the Mississippi, it would have been big news had they showed up out there. I was kind of wondering whether or not we'd see Dunbar. Now Kelvin, I've looked at a lot of pictures from that pro day, and Kelvin was indeed the only one I have spotted. We'll see if we spot more as more of these pictures come out today and all. But beyond that, do we know if Derek Harmon and the other defensive linemen did anything yesterday?
I didn't check.
I couldn't find anything, but that does not, that does not mean anything.
Yeah, I did not hear anything about Harmon going through his workout. He tested at the combine, he ran, and so, he checked some of those boxes there. So maybe he didn't do much. I didn't check to see if the other defensive lineman, because again, it wasn't just Harmon there. It's Caldwell. Birch is a defensive line edge type of a guy. I mean, there was more than just one defensive line prospect. And so I don't know who all did what at the workout, but again, team sent D-line coaches, so there was some expectation, even if Harmon wasn't going to work out, to send some of those positional guys. And I'm pretty confident in saying, because we talked to Draft Diamonds, who I think had the entire list of personnel who attended, and he told me it was only Kelvin Fisher for Pittsburgh.
Right. Did you say you thought Harmon ran yesterday?
No, he ran at the combine.
Right.
So he did a lot at the combine that probably would say he didn't have to do as much and could sit on his pro day. But, I mean, did he at least do positional drills? I'm not sure.
I'm like I said, in what I looked yesterday, I couldn't find anything on it, and that's I'll look more later on today, see if I can research it down. But what if they knew ahead of time that he wasn't going to do anything? What if you're calling up his agent and say, look, we're thinking about coming out to the pro day. Should we? Is he going to go through positional drills? And his agent says no.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair point. Again, it was more than just Harmon there. It's a guy like Caldwell that could fit Pittsburgh's system. And so I think Pittsburgh sends their positional coaches often when there's multiple prospects of intrigue and interest to really make it worth the trip. The positional coaches only typically go to 2, maybe 3 at most pro days per year. Did Harmon talk after? We have anything? Was Harmon in Oregon yesterday? I'm trying to find out. If he even spoke to the media. I'm not seeing anything just in my quick search of it.
I am not. Let me see if I'm seeing something here. I'm not even seeing where he talked to the media yesterday. All I'm seeing is a bunch of clips on him, all 22 clips on Twitter. And usually if those guys talk, somebody shows up with something, on Twitter with him speaking. So, long story short, look, last year we saw, the Steelers did not go out they sent Pat Meyer out there to Washington. They ended up drafting Fautanu in the first round. So this team can indeed draft a player without having to go to their pro day, especially if it's one on the other side of the Mississippi River there. I would, and you obviously are going to agree with this as well too. For him to remain in to be in contention to be the 21st overall selection, he's going to have to come in for a pre-draft visit. And I would imagine that's going to happen here over the course of the next couple of weeks.
Yes, that's going to have to be a must for Pittsburgh and for us to at least keep Harmon on the board at number 21. I'm with you. I think it's going to happen. I'd be really surprised if he didn't come in for a visit, but we're going to need to check that box. Fautanu worked out at his pro day last year, I believe, correct? I'm trying to think back to last year's Washington pro day. Did Fautanu participate?
I thought he did. I thought we had video of that happening.
Okay, so that would make sense. And yeah, maybe that was the reason why the attendance was light, but yeah, I was still surprised by it overall because, again, Oregon had a bunch of prospects, even at other positions. You could talk about Jabbar Muhammad, the nickel corner. You could talk about, I don't know, Tej Johnson, the receiver, who's undersized, but playmaking type that could fit what Pittsburgh is looking for. So, Dylan Gabriel, the quarterback, even though he's going to be a late round undrafted type of a guy, the point is the Ducks have as many draftable prospects this year as probably any college team, and that'd be a trip worth sending some extra people out to scout.
That's a long flight up there.
Yeah,
that's a lot of Rudy's gas.
They got private jets. I don't know.
That's a lot of gas to use for a guy that maybe ain't gonna go through the paces.
Yeah, but there were a bunch of guys that did go through the paces.
I know.
Worth checking.
I'm just trying to counterbalance the argument out here.
I hear you.
And Dunbar, I don't know if Dunbar probably like to be on one of them jets for all that time. They wouldn't fly him on that plane by himself, would they? Especially when Mike Tomlin and them had the plane going to Alabama.
It's true. All right, we can get a first class commercial flight.
I know I'm getting into semantics here, but all these little things we look back after the fact and we say, oh, okay, that made sense. I mean, look, Oregon. I didn't realize how far Oregon. We've got relatives that live in the Portland area, and when we moved out to Vegas, I thought, oh yeah, that's quick to get up there. It's not, even from Vegas. So I'm just saying that maybe they knew that he wasn't going to do much of anything, and they're saying, okay, well, we saw him at the combine and all like that. We'll just bring him in for a visit.
Are there any Oregon connections at Alabama? Because I was reminded of this just trying to research it. One thing Pittsburgh said after drafting Fautanu last year for not going to his pro day, and like you said, he came in for a visit, was at the Alabama pro day, they learned about Fautanu because it was the Washington coaching staff of DeBoer coming in to replace Nick Saban. And so there was kind of almost a quasi indirect way to learn about Fautanu and the Washington coaching staff at the Bama pro day. Is there any such connection this year at Alabama? Is there anything Michigan State adjacent? I know that pro day's already taken place and it was only Quentin Harris going, but Harmon played at Michigan State for several seasons before transferring to Oregon. Is there any kind of finagling we can try to do in the same way they did with Fautanu?
I don't know. I guess you could pull up the Alabama coaching list and then do the Google searches that way. So
yeah, that's our life right now. Probably nothing quite as obvious as there was with Fautanu that comes to mind right now. But we'll keep an eye on the pre-draft visit. That to me, like you said, still a must if Harmon is going to be on our short list at number 21. And he should be.
And he should be, and he's very much in my sights right now.
Let's talk about the South Carolina Pro Day, Dave, and Pittsburgh sending at least 2 personnel members there, including, most notably, new defensive backs coach Gerald Alexander, who you spotted personally working out their top safety, Nick Eamon-Worry, probably the second safety we drafted this year, potentially even the first safety drafted this year. Dave, do we need to talk about safety more as a possible early selection for Pittsburgh? I know on paper does not feel like the big need that running back and defensive line and other positions need, but at Georgia last week, Terrell Austin personally works out Their two safeties in Malachi Starks and Dan Jackson. Starks, a first-round safety. Now Alexander's working out Eamon Worry. These are some pretty clear signs this team is sending.
I look at it as you have to have all your bases covered if the board does not break the way that you want it to break, and you get a gift with such an athletic freak, especially with Imanore there. I think you've got to leave all options on the table when it comes to him or that position or those two top guys specifically there. And I think this is more of a doing due diligence on these guys in case the two or three guys that you might have circled you think coming to you and those other guys not falling to you. I think you've got to be prepared to take a guy should you get a gift and they drop to you like that.
Let me ask you this then. What more do we need to see to go from due diligence to, oh, this is actually top of their list or in serious consideration beyond due diligence?
Oh, I don't know. Something maybe coming out with, I don't know, character or something on a couple of these guys that maybe we think, look, it's going to take a lot to get me off the Derek Harmon train, you know.
Sure, and D-line's the most important, but I mean, what if they start bringing these guys in for visits too? What if Eamon Worry comes in for a visit?
I still think it's just doing your due diligence there because you might be in a position where he falls to you, and if you clearly have him ranked, graded as a higher player, you should not bypass the opportunity to draft a guy that's going to be a multi-Pro Bowler and potential Hall of Famer, regardless of position.
Sure. No, I agree. But okay, so what more do we have to see to upgrade it beyond due diligence? What more do they have to do? They're showing more interest in safeties than defensive linemen. How many places has Dunbar been to this year versus how many places has, Terrell Austin and Gerald Alexander been to?
I mean, how much more would it? To me, it wouldn't move the needle even more at this point, just knowing that he's an athletic freak and having Gerald Alexander at the pro day, if they brought him in for a visit, is just a continuation of them just doing that due diligence on him potentially being on the board there.
So there's nothing Pittsburgh could do from a scouting pro day Blues Clues perspective that tells you safety might actually be in play at 21 or even the third round.
Well, I mean, I thought you were talking first round there because Nick's not going to last.
Sure,
Nick's not going to last that long, right?
No, definitely not. But the point is, where they send coordinators, positional coaches often indicate what do we believe our biggest needs are. What do we want to address earlier in the draft than later? Maybe not always first round, but with one of our top selections. But even in first round, I mean, they're looking at first round guys in Eamon Worry, in Malachi Starks. That says something to me. And also Deshaun Elliott, last year of his contract, Thornhill signed just a 1-year deal. If Minkah Fitzpatrick has another quiet season, is he secure in 2026? He's under contract, but there'll be, I think, a real discussion there, and rightfully so. Is this team trying to get ahead of what's coming down the road at safety?
Potentially. I mean, look, especially when you go out and kind of put what's that product? Wonder Seal,
Flex State.
Flex Seal on the depth problem right now with a guy in Juan Thornhill. Usually some of the minor holes, that perceived holes, draft needs, going into the draft, they sort of put Band-Aids on in free agency. So and look, they don't have anything behind Elliott and Minkah Fitzpatrick right now prior to Thornhill signing, right? And Elliott's in the final year of his contract right now, and then you're probably going to have to make a big decision once again on Minkah next offseason there. So, here's the thing. If they show up and start looking at Xavier Watts, when's the Notre Dame pro day?
I'm not sure. Sometime later this month.
And Kevin Winston, I guess, is one of those that's all. Virginia was a big pro day yesterday, right, with Sanker, and I looked all over the place, couldn't find anybody from the Steelers there. But did you spot anybody from the Steelers at Virginia?
Yes, I need to tweet those out. I'm getting my names mixed up. I think it was Jimmy Knoll the area scout. I'll send you a photo. I got a blurry screenshot of him for us to investigate.
Okay, and we'll obviously see what happens with Winston at the Penn State Pro Day, but it's already been said that a lot of Nebraska's probably going to. I suppose Gerald Alexander will probably be at the Penn State Pro Day, and then I guess isn't Xavier Watts considered kind of the third best behind Starks and Eamon Warre?
Yeah, he's around. I don't know exactly. I'm sure flavors and lists will change, but he's up there. Also at Penn State, Jalen Reed, who's healthy and work out. I don't know if Winston's going to be working out coming off the injury, but it'd be logical if Alexander made that not super far trip to Penn State.
All right. Once again, I look at this as just doing due diligence. Should a guy like that fall?
Oh, the Steelers are making a proposal. This is not quarterback-related news, but I'm just reading the tweet live here from Jonathan Jones. The Steelers have proposed to modernize the legal tampering window by allowing teams one video call with an unrestricted free agent and the arrangement of travel for a player who agrees to terms before the official start of free agency. So that's a little more logistical, trying to get with the times post-COVID, where Zoom calls became frequent and still used today in a variety of factors, and then arrangement of travel for a player who agrees to terms before the official start of free agency to, I guess, help facilitate getting these guys in the building, signed, sealed, and delivered.
All right. Interesting that they would propose that.
Last year, they proposed the trade deadline getting pushed back by a week, and that was adopted. I think these are, at least the video call makes sense. Maybe the agreement of travel could be debated a bit more, but this is all more, again, logistical than it is super interesting or relevant in terms of how things will work for the public purview.
All right. I didn't have that on my bingo card this morning.
Me neither. True or false? Will Pittsburgh draft a safety in the top 4 rounds with their first, third, or fourth round selection?
I'm going to say no.
Okay. I am going to say yes as things stand today based on the tea leaves. Now, I say that with my latest mock draft that does not have a safety in the first 4 rounds, but it does have a safety in the mock draft. We can touch on that here in just a moment. Any other pro day news? We should talk about, sticking with the draft, some pre-draft visitors have come in since we last spoke, Dave. 2 of them, one, Jaden Higgins, the wide receiver from Iowa State, and a local one. Not even sure why this is happening, but Ben Sauls, the Pitt Panthers kicker, coming in for a visit and just going next door for a visit. He is local. He does not count against our allotted 30, obviously. But Ben Sauls and Jaden Higgins, the latest visitors for Pittsburgh.
All right. Makes sense with Saul because he is a local player.
And he's a great college kicker. He's got a big leg. He made a bunch of 50-plus yarders at Acrisure Stadium. I think he made a 58-yarder against Cal, had a pair of 57-yarders, although I don't know if those came in Pittsburgh or not. And remember the old Tomlin quip about, was it McAfee? Anybody who can hit a 50-yarder at Heinz Field can play in the NFL. It's not as hard at 50-yarders in Pittsburgh as it used to be, but Sauls did it regularly and had a great career. Regarded as one of the better kickers. I imagine he'll go somewhere else because obviously you come to Pittsburgh, you're behind Bosch, you really don't have a chance, but worth noting regardless.
Right. I don't expect them to draft a kicker, obviously, but just doing their due diligence, and because he's a local player doesn't count against your 30 and yada yada.
And Higgins is the notable name here, obviously. Big playmaker, 6'4", crushed the combine, ran sub 4.5, just had great testing. His RAS is off the charts, and so that's the guy that had a huge 2024 season for the Cyclones. Pittsburgh looking for playmakers. Higgins certainly fits that bill.
All right, agreed.
All right, Dave, anything else here from a pro day perspective? We did confirm Tomlin is at the Bama Pro Day today. There was a shot, and it's funny, Joe Clark tweeted it out, of him next to Aaron Curry, the Jets' current linebackers coach, and I'm sure we'll see Omar Khan, Tom Arth soon enough, and probably some other Steelers personnel members throughout the day.
All right. It'll be fun going back through the tape of that, which I assume is on SEC Network now.
How the heck did you find the tweet from, and I'm trying to get the pronunciation correct, I apologize in advance, Oshawa Baptist? How did they even come across that? It's a great find by you.
Twitter sleuthing.
What did you even search though?
I don't
Or did it
even
just pop into your timeline randomly and you just kind of got a good
it
algorithm?
wasn't random because I had to look 2 or 3 times to make sure what the what the school was and all like that. I mean, my predominant search that I have is just pro in quotations pro day 2 words or pro day 1 word on Twitter. And
Okay.
and then I start doom scrolling from there. And then oftentimes you got to go to websites and try to see their photo galleries and see if it's a password protected. And then you go to you know how it works. You go to the news stations, but I don't know how that came up. But
Well, great
that
find.
that that was a weird find, as was it was a tough find on the on the Rooney kid at Syracuse, kind of hidden behind somebody.
Yeah, we saw about half his body, and Teresa Varley's been very kind to confirm some of these things for us. So yeah, at Oshawa Baptist, it was Chris Watts. The area's got 23 teams showed up there, which is, maybe that's proximity. Maybe there was another local pro day that day. I think Central Arkansas was going on, but still, that is notable. They got a couple guys down there. I was doing some research last night, Dave. Watch out for Rovell Carter. Kind of has that Steelers. He's got big undrafted free agent energy for Pittsburgh. Listed 6'3", 295. Don't know his length, but 5.5 sacks last year. I'm gonna call my shot now. It's a real bold prediction. Rovell Carter will be a Pittsburgh Steeler post draft.
All right.
All right, my mock draft, my second edition, the mock draft went up today, and so I would just kind of run through my picks quickly. Want to get your take on it, Dave? A little more information now after that first wave of free agency and some pro days to help kind of uh, start to figure out and clarify where Pittsburgh might go in the draft. These are always my beliefs of what the team will do, never what I would personally do. So in the first round, I went Derek Harmon in my first mock draft. I'm sticking D-line in this mock draft, but pivoting to Kenneth Grant, the nose tackle from Michigan.
Kenneth Grant, definitely easy dot connect there. Michigan Pro Day coming up, and we would expect to see a lot of the Steelers front office people there. This team could use defensive line. Obviously, it's an easy connection. The old will he or won't he be here conversation, I'm sure you're probably getting in the comments there. But if he is on the board, he's definitely got to be in consideration.
For sure. It's just hard to see this team based on current construction to have to wait until the third round to start addressing starter snaps along the defensive line with how good this class is. And yes, the class is good and deep, but that depth only lasts for so long. And will it still be deep at 83? Unlikely, and whatever, you're kind of left with scraps, and some guys might not fit, and some guys might have their own concerns and character injury issues, and you don't want to be left over with the remainder. And so Pittsburgh, it is still hard, despite my commentary on safety, it is still hard to see this team not take defensive line at 21.
I agree.
At 83, third round, I surprised myself, Dave. I've been a little cooler on the idea of taking receiver early than you and probably some others, but I did so here. I took Savion Williams, the receiver from TCU, who came in for a visit, and so there's an obvious connection there. He has been compared most commonly to Deebo Samuel, and Pittsburgh had some interest in Deebo Samuel before he got dealt to Washington. He's a guy that had 51 rushing attempts this year, a playmaker, versatile, different ways to get him on the field. And with George Pickens last year, his rookie contract, same with even Calvin Austin, maybe receiver. This will be a move that it may not have a super high impact immediately, but will be more of a longer term 2026 and beyond type of play.
I certainly understand the direction you went there. What would it have taken for you to put the Tennessee wide receiver in that spot?
That's too high for Dante Thornton. As much as I
Think
like
so?
him, I think he'll probably get drafted above expectation for a guy with 65 career receptions and is a pretty one note, go long kind of a receiver. That is just too early for Thornton.
Could you have gone the next round on him?
I think round 4 is the earliest on where Dante Thornton would go, yes.
All right. What would you have done instead of Savion? What other way could you have seen yourself leaning had you not gone that way? Running back?
Yeah, my others considered here are DJ Giddens, the running back from Kansas State, Will Howard, the quarterback from Ohio State, and then Darian Porter, the receiver turned corner, that big long guy out of Iowa State.
All right.
Round 4, going running back, looking for playmakers. Theme of the offseason for Pittsburgh's offense is playmakers, juice, explosiveness. Bashal Tootin out of Virginia Tech, who ran 4.32, had a 9.37 RAS, great college career, over 2,000 yards in 2 years at Virginia Tech. Found the end zone a ton, can catch the ball, explosive. And so that is what, I think Pittsburgh will be looking for in that range of running back, 3rd to 4th rounder, bring in a playmaker. Your Giddens, your Dylan Sampsons, they've had interest in both of them. Tootin as well, coming in for a visit. I think 3rd, 4th round is that sweet spot for where running back will come into play.
And I think the thing that I remember about Tootin is when it comes to all these running backs, good running backs in this year's class, he's one of the ones that had towards the bottom end of the career carries. 356 carries, I think, during his college career. The thing that stuck out with me too is 4.8%, 20 plus yard percent of his runs in that, and had 60 10 plus yard runs for 16.9%. So he didn't carry the football a lot over his college football career, but had a little bit of explosiveness, big playability, especially in the 10-yard category, more so I think than the 20-yard category.
Yeah, that was my read of the numbers as well. All right, round 5, going defense here with Tommy Hill, the cornerback from Nebraska. He's big, he's physical, former receiver. He's got receiver-like hands at corner. He had that plantar fasciitis issue to end 2024. Played when he probably shouldn't have. Had some ugly tape out there against Illinois, USC. Didn't finish out the year, but he's raw. He's toolsy. He's a worthwhile flyer in the 5th round. Can hopefully help on special teams, but Pittsburgh likes their corners big and physical, and Hill checks that box.
I know the only thing I've seen on him so far is really just a quick look at the scouting report we have up on the site. I don't know too much about him beyond that.
Yeah, have the whole report up there. So again, a real project type of a guy at corner, hasn't played the position that much, not a lot of game experience overall, but you're talking 5th round, you're looking for some upside. I think Hill can be that guy. Not going to be a big contributor in year 1, but potentially year 2. If you lose Darius Slay, if he moves on, and we'll see what happens with Corey Trice and his ability or lack thereof to stay healthy.
All right, so you just told me you think the Steelers will ultimately draft a safety in the first 4 rounds, but in this mock you waited until the 6th round to get one.
Both sides of the coin here, Dave. Can never lose. That's my approach on this one.
I like the Wisconsin connection here, though. I see what you're doing here.
And Waller, this is Hunter Waller from Wisconsin, my 6th round pick. He could go higher than this. I think he will probably ultimately go higher than the 6th round, but projections right now are still kind of putting him in that 5th, 6th round type of range. The issue with Waller is a lack of just long speed. You watch against Alabama, for example, trying to track down Jalen Milroe, had a hard time doing that. He ran in the high 4.5s, but everything else about his tape is really good, Dave. He's big, he's physical, he's instinctive, he supports the run. I think his man coverage ability is better than people give him credit for. He can cover crossing routes, he can take on tight ends. He's a leader, really hard worker, and of course, Pittsburgh loves nothing more than drafting Wisconsin Badger defender.
Was he a Senior Bowl or Shrine? Or
I think he was Senior Bowl. I will double check. Don't think he was Shrine.
Okay.
Double check. He was a Senior Bowl.
Okay, I thought so. I couldn't remember though. But okay, yeah, I get that.
Yeah, I put a 4th round grade on Waller, higher than most, but I think he'll go probably about 4th round. But I'm kind of working off of where consensus is right now when I make these mocks. What seems to be realistic based on that, and Waller's that 5th, 6th round range. All right, Dave, for my last pick, I'm going kind of shades of 2022 here with our old friend Chris Oladokun. I'm going quarterback to round things out in Brady Cook from Missouri. Now, I'm not a big Brady Cook fan. I thought his tape, I think he was injured this year, was really, really poor. That's why guys like Luther Burden had a step back in production, but he's tough. He is athletic, had a really good combine workout in that regard. And we know Pittsburgh, when it comes to undrafted free agents, they're uncompetitive in that pool. So you draft the guy, otherwise you're going to lose him to somebody else that's going to offer $200K and a partial base salary guarantee. Pittsburgh would like some youth, some depth, some developmental type of guys, and I think quarterback could be in play.
All right. I mean, to take a dart throw on a quarterback in the 7th round. I mean, they did it a couple years ago with all Doug. If you're going to do that, though, give the kid some snaps during the damn training camp at all.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I mean, I don't know. He would compete with obviously Skylar Thompson, for those reps in that role. Yeah, I don't know how it would look in training camp, but the point is you're drafting because you're never going to sign that guy as an undrafted free agent, right? Because some
Right.
team's going to swoop in. Quarterbacks are always going to command, good money. And
I don't
you're
know. They got that
30,
quarterback last year and paid him, what was it? 30, was it
30
35,000?
35 on Plumlee. Yeah, but like if Cook is one of the top, because I bet you half the teams didn't even view Plumlee as a quarterback. They probably were scouting him as a receiver. Cook is a quarterback, and so if you're one of the top 3-4 quarterbacks in that undrafted pool, which I think Cook would be if he wasn't drafted, you're not gonna your 30K signing bonus is gonna lose out to the 200K partial base salary guarantee.
All right. What was the one after you pressed the button? What was the one you wish you wish you would have redone right after you
I
pushed the button? Because we all have remorse right after we push the button.
Yeah, I honestly didn't get that feeling as strongly. I really only get that for my last mock draft, the final edition, where this is the final one that I'll kind of remember overall. I thought safety probably could have been and should have been higher. So I think that was kind of the thought I had. Should I have tried to push up safety? And I'm not sure who that would have replaced, but I thought maybe safety higher than 6th round for the reasons I mentioned earlier.
Okay. All right.
So that's my latest edition. I'll do hopefully 2 more, obviously at least 1 more, but probably 2 more before the NFL draft starts in about 5 weeks.
It's almost getting that time again. Okay. What else do we have to discuss here?
That's all I got, Dave. If there's anything else you want to discuss, feel free. If there's any I feel like it's a kind of just steady news day right now, so I might be missing something, but that's
All
all I got.
right. While you look to see if anything's late breaking, I'll look in the email machine here to see what's going on. This one catches my eye and always will. Eric Fort with the title Cap versus Cash. I usually begin by saying Dave and Alex, but this is a Dave email. Okay, as one of the resident psychos who actually enjoys the mathematical minutia of the 3-year cap versus cash obligation topic, I'm curious to know, where do the Steelers currently stand in cash projection ballpark for, I guess, this year, he writes? And B, where would they be after an assumed what extension? Your best guess. But more importantly, C, not to suggest low 2025 cash expenditure could be a driving factor, but are they in a scenario where they almost have to throw money at an elderly quarterback? I ask all this knowing that we don't yet have full clarity on several recent contracts, but I'm betting those numbers will surface before another quarterback lands on the roster. Great question, Eric Fort, and you know how to catch my eye here. And here's the thing: the cash report came out. I guess this is a great time to kind of toot my own horn from, let me see if I can pull it up from the numbers that the NFLPA pulled up, posted, that kind of got lost in the shuffle at the start of free agency here. Let me get the exact numbers for everybody. The last year, heading into free agency, I was talking about how I thought the Steelers would spend 92% of the 2024 cap number in cash. The report that came out from, and specifically, I think I said 235 million last year in cash that I expected them to spend. Well, they only spent 230 million, Alex. So I apologize for being wrong, but that's a pretty damn good dart shot, if you ask me. And I think I even talked about there being kind of a $5 to $6 million gap there at the end, and kind of wondering if Najee Harris might, how you can make up that gap if you gave Najee a deal and yada yada. So I'm pretty damn proud of myself for first year of a 3-year cycle, which is really the hardest to kind of get a grasp on there, to come so close. So, and I just recently started trying to get better at the cash expenditures by year there. So, excuse me for tooting my own horn there. Now, as far as ballpark for this year, I am. Look, this is extremely tough from the to give a live update right now, because even now we're still waiting for the DK Metcalf numbers to come in. We're still waiting. The Watt thing is a little bit maybe easier to kind of project, but the numbers have kind of probably gone up a little bit in cash. And we're still waiting for a couple of contracts like Eccles and some of these other guys that have signed recently for those contracts to come in. I think I don't have my numbers in front of me right now, but I think last kind of playing, and then obviously the quarterback thing is going to be a huge thing. If this is a 1-year, let's say $35 million contract, if they don't, even if they use void years, if it's a 1-year, let's say $35 million contract, then that's $35 million that's going to be paid out in 2025. That's a huge cash allotment versus maybe say a 2-year $70 million deal where the cash in the first year would be a little bit lower than that. So the whole quarterback thing and not knowing the DK Metcalf particulars right now have me kind of in waiting mode right now. I will still say that probably at this time, doing my best guesstimation on what the DK Metcalf cash will look like and all like that, they still got another, I don't know, $70 million right now. Here's the thing, Eric, if you want to start playing around with the numbers, I think regardless of what all these numbers say, I'm still expecting them to spend at right around 95 to say 97% of this year's cap number in cash. So just take the cap number, times it by 95 or 97%, and then that'll give you the cash. Now, as soon as this Metcalf contract comes in and a few of these others, which hopefully will be within the next calendar week, I'm going to write about this and have been planning to write about it. Normally I write about it earlier, but the fact that waiting on quarterback and waiting on the Metcalf contract, it's not going to change what my prediction will be as far as a percentage, 95 to 90%, 97% of the total cap number in cash. But as far as giving an update of where they're at, it will be a lot easier to do so once I get these contract numbers in. And I can do it, based off of just the DK Metcalf number alone once that comes in, and then kind of guesstimate maybe what they will or won't do at the quarterback position. But long story short, this team is still, depending on what they do with the quarterback, in excellent situation as far as cash goes, and we'll see what the cap situation goes. Because once again, if this is a 1-year deal, and let's say it's $35 million, that's good. That's a sizable cap hit to have to assume.
Can they? I guess we can't answer that completely without knowing these contracts, but could they do a 1-year, $35 million deal? How much cap space would they have left over if they did that kind of deal with Aaron Rodgers?
I mean, you're getting into, let's see, where's my
that would almost have to, you're basically, okay, we have to restructure Highsmith in Freiermuth and that kind of stuff to probably make all that work, right?
Well, I've got, with the contracts that I've got in right now, and I have in there as Metcalf as his transferred over cap number at 18 million, which will obviously be lower. But even with the things that I have calculated right now, I have this team at 33.5 million under the cap. Now let's go ahead and say, Skoranek and Miller and Loudermilk and some of these other guys aren't going to take up that much cap room. So let's put them at $30 million under the cap. Okay. After displacement and all like that. Remember that once the DK Metcalf number comes in, his cap number is going to decrease probably by about 9 or 10 million. So I just freed up. Let's put us at at $40 million under the cap. And then let's say you had to put a $35 million cap charge, within that. I mean, you still got $5 million in cap space that you're playing with.
Yeah, I'm not saying they would have to do it to facilitate the Rodgers deal, but they would have to do it before the season begins to clear up additional cap space for everything else.
I still don't think they're gonna. I might be wrong, but at least from where I'm at right now, I don't think that they're going to have to restructure any of these contracts.
But if they did that deal with Rodgers, there's no way. If you only have even $10 million left in cap
Well, you're going to
space,
have the Watt. You're going to have the Watt cap number come down too at some point.
how much though?
Probably about 9 or 10 million.
Yeah, but still, for your rookie class, your practice squad,
Your rookie class right now to accommodate your rookie class is under 3 million right now.
I know, but I mean, you got your practice squad, you got your 52nd and 53rd players on the roster. You have how much of that in-season buffer are you looking for? 6 million or so?
Yeah, I mean
it gets tight.
It does get tight there for sure.
And if you want to make a trade for a team that apparently is trying to still go all in and would like to make a deadline deal, you never know what's going to be out there. You want to have maybe a little extra buffer to play with for any in-season acquisitions. So I don't know. I'll cross all those bridges. I mean, I say this a little tongue-in-cheek, but what will we get first? Aaron Rodgers' decision or the contract numbers for these backlog deals like Metcalf? They may happen, I don't know, next week or something.
Hard to say when they're coming. I thought the Metcalf thing would be in. It tells you a lot about the Metcalf number, though. I think that nothing's being kind of reported about that as far as first year cash flow. That kind of thing there. But look, I mean, as soon as these numbers come in, I will definitely post about them.
All right, I know you will.
All right, let's see what else we have in the email machine here.
And just quickly, by the way, while you do that, Jahad Campbell, who's in a sling today, has a torn labrum, unfortunately for him. He was also at the Steelers Pro Day dinner with Jalen Milroe and Steelers brass. And so, like we said, top of the show, rarely is it the one-on-one meetings at these big pro days, Tomlin and Connaughton. A lot of that is intentional. Tomlin, Pittsburgh wants to see how you interact with your teammates. How does the quarterback interact with his teammates is a really important thing. So these are not typically one-on-one sessions.
All right.
I'm sorry. Any other emails?
Let's see here what we have here. Nathan Casey. George Lucian's perspective. David Alex, the point that folks keep missing about GP is he doesn't care that the Steelers would be down to one elite wide receiver if he is gone. So saying the Steelers wouldn't do that or they would be in the same spot they were last year rings hollow. GP cares about GP, not the Steelers depth chart when he is gone. He isn't going to risk injury and he knows they won't pay him. That adds up to big problems. They need to deal him for what they can and move on, or they let it devolve into drama. His value plummets. There are still wide receiver positions if in free agency as well. So he's just pretty much saying that just missing the whole point on George Pickens' situation here. Just basically saying that you need to go ahead and get what you can for him now because he's going to be a problem, I guess is what he's saying.
Yeah, none of us said that Pickens was scouring our lads to see the depth chart. The point was, what is Pittsburgh's motivation to trade him? And I don't think they would have the internal motivation to want to deal him. I know the reader's saying that they should, but that was just our whole point about that. Pickens could certainly want out, and it wouldn't be surprising if anybody, if that became the conclusion. I understand there are still some free agent names, but none of them are capable like George Pickens. None of them offer the vertical big playability of a George Pickens. So I understand the argument to trade him. I get it. It's obvious. It doesn't take much of a discussion to know why you would want to trade George Pickens. But if you do, there is a reality that you're in a similar situation as last year in terms of you have a one grade A receiver and potentially not much else. And there's a consequence to that.
Look, can you completely rule out George Pickens will not be traded? Would you bet your house that George Pickens would not be traded this offseason?
No, of course not. Because
right.
Would anyone be surprised if he came out and said, I want to trade? He's not made much commentary, but he has had a little bit of social media activity. I don't like analyzing it too much, but he commented on the deals that Chase and Higgins got. Seemed to like that, and I don't know, he had a cryptic Tom Brady Instagram story, which I don't even care about, but certainly he's aware of what receivers are getting paid.
Real quick, harkening back, Jerry Dulac is one of the ones that keeps saying he expects if they sign Aaron Rodgers, or really probably, I would imagine, Russell Wilson to be in a 1-year contract. And because of that being such a high cap hit and being kind of unorthodox for the Steelers, for a 1-year contract to be that big, it does make you wonder if they would explore the void year option.
True. That's a good point.
And thus eliminate some of the cap responsibility for this year into potentially next year. Because obviously the contract would void, and then all that dead money comes rushing up next offseason and all. So if you want to talk about potential cap space and all like that on a 1-year deal, I mean, it would be another stop the presses kind of type moment to bring a quarterback in on a $35 million deal on a 1-year contract, no void years, and that be his cap hit.
Yeah, we're through the looking glass on that one. Now, they have not used the void years one time since the COVID year,
Right.
correct?
Right.
And how many contracts did they use void years on? Was it
Wasn't it 2 or 3 or something?
Yeah, who was it? Did Steven
Sutton,
Nelson?
Sutton was one of them they used it on.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of.
It
It doesn't matter, I guess, but they were a couple contracts, but they weren't huge money deals, correct? They were, because Sutton was a pretty small contract.
Right. All right, Dante Besognier writes in, the Steelers played in nickel way more this season than last. Would he, and this is on Nick Amawore, would he be a good fit in the big nickel package in theory? He says, seems like they'd be better equipped to play it, especially if it's Cam and Benton inside. He can match up against tight ends, or at least not be dwarfed by them, and maybe he would see more snaps than a first-round defensive lineman. I know you guys might not have watched him extensively yet, but in a division with Jamar Chase and Lamar Jackson, having that type of athlete to counter with seems appealing to me. So he wants to know about Nick Amawore. Look, if you spend a first-round draft pick on Nick Amawore, you're going to find a way to get him on the field.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it's an interesting thought, and yeah, there's a big nickel package which Pittsburgh has used quite a bit against teams like Baltimore. Any team with 12 personnel, heavy tendencies that have athletic tight ends like the Ravens have, and Andrews and Likely, you see a lot of big nickel, that 2-4-5 with a third safety as opposed to a third cornerback utilized. So there would be creative ways to use him for sure, and I can certainly see the appeal. I mean, I made this point a couple times recently. Teams always have to first start with, how do we win our division? Who are we competing against? What are their strengths? What do we have to combat? And Pittsburgh's in a unique and difficult spot where they have to compete against one of the NFL's best rushing attacks in Baltimore and one of its best passing attacks in Cincinnati. And now that's locked in for a long time with Burrow, Higgins, and Chase. And so you better have safeties who can do it all. That can run, that can cover, that can hit, that can tackle, and you need to probably have really, really strong safeties. And Pittsburgh has 2 good safeties in Elliott and Fitzpatrick, but looking long term, that's where maybe Amawore could come into play.
What do you think about Fred Jackson going on a 1-year deal to the Jaguars?
Fred Johnson?
Fred Johnson.
Yeah, I was thinking back to the old Buffalo Bills running back. See the money on that, I think would have made sense. Pittsburgh at least addressed safety depth. The next area of extreme need depth-wise is offensive tackle. What is behind Broderick Jones and Troy Fautanu right now, Dave?
Yeah, not much. You got Cook.
Dylan Cook.
You got whatever you think Spencer Anderson can do. He mostly played guard for you last season.
Mm-hmm.
Who else?
That's about it. I'm not even sure who's even on future contracts right now. Stephen Jones is really more of a guard. He played a little bit of tackle at Oregon, but he's not a tackle at the NFL level. It's super, super thin, obviously. And so I think getting a veteran in there who can play left and right tackle is necessary. Would you consider Jedrick Wills of the Browns, Dave? Former first-round pick?
For cheap enough, yeah. I think you almost have to at this point as an option.
He's one of the more talented tackles left, but he seemed to be a malcontent, frustratingly below potential tackle. And does Pittsburgh need a second one of those on their roster who can't really play right tackle? not loving it, but he is probably the best name out there.
The
But yeah,
longer he stays out there, Calvin Anderson's probably going to come back on a veteran benefit deal here to see if he can make the roster. That's it, though, right?
I mean, I mentioned Storm Norton, who had a little Arthur Smith connection from their time in Atlanta. But point is, they need a veteran tackle. A mentor, I think, is helpful for a young group of Fautanu, of Jones, even Dylan Cook, but then somebody who has experience to play left and right side. Because in general, this team's offensive line depth is not looking great compared to a year ago where it was super deep and they needed it when they had 6 different O-line combinations the first 7 games of the season. I know losing Dan Moore and James Daniels were predictable, and no one's going to lose sleep over Nate Herbig leaving to Washington inherently, but you're losing a lot of depth there. I mean, your depth right now is McCollum, Anderson. There's nothing to tackle. It's not looking great right now if you have injuries similar to what happened in 2024.
Did you think about in the 7th round of maybe putting a tackle in there instead of a quarterback?
I did, and you could certainly argue that. I think there was one lineman in my first mock draft, but when you have only 6 picks, though, it's hard to fill all those slots.
All right. I think you're going to see a couple of veteran benefit contracts here before the weekend comes. I'm watching to see if they bring James Pierre back on a veteran benefit contract. I'm waiting to see maybe if, as we mentioned, Calvin Anderson comes back on a minimum veteran benefit deal. Who else might be in line that's left on the unrestricted list that could potentially sign? I'm still kind of wondering why they didn't exclusive tender Jeremiah Moon.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't have a good answer for it. I mean, a lot of Pittsburgh's free agents have been signed away.
Mm-hmm.
Is Pittsburgh lead the league? They have to, right, Dave? And lead the league in free agents who have signed elsewhere at this point?
And that's rare at this. Even the number that they have signed so far is rare. And the fact that it's come this early in the process is super rare. I'm trying to scroll down here.
I mean, they've had
Bengals have re-signed a bunch of their. I'm trying to look and see sort of old versus new teams here. Yeah, I think the Steelers probably do potentially lead that list. Let's see.
It's been how many guys? Like 10 guys that have signed elsewhere already. It's almost, I should say, 5,000 snaps. Just offense, defense, not even considering special teams from last year. And that doesn't even count Russell Wilson, who, as of current form, we don't believe will come back to Pittsburgh. So I wrote the article yesterday. We talk about change. Some may be underwhelmed by the lack of change, but there's been a lot of potential addition by subtraction.
Right. Exactly. I agree. All right. We're about an hour and 40, I guess, into this, 30 into this. So I guess we'll start wrapping it up as soon as we do. Probably some news will break, but unless something cataclysmical happens with the quarterback position or free agent signing, we'll be back on Friday morning going over the latest and anything pro days and all like that that happens. So be on the lookout on the site for that. Alex has got the tracker going, and every day we're looking for pro day sightings and those kind of things there, and any news, who's saying what, we have on the site. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter/X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button. Follow the directions that way. And appreciate all the great emails. Appreciate all the great support. Appreciate all the effort by the people that put the content up for us as well, too, Alex included. So get by and look at Alex's latest mock draft on the site. As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.